But
Yeah, it was really fun.
um, yeah. So while we wait for quorum, the holidays start next week. I have a very pointed question for people. There's a right and wrong answer to this one, in my opinion. I want to know how you feel about cranberry sauce. Let's talk about it. Anybody have feelings about cranberry sauce?
I do. It can't be canned. You got to make it from scratch.
Okay. Annette is team not ocean spray in a can. Okay, Zafir.
I just can't do it. I don't know. I've never had good cranberry sauce. I've had it canned, had homemade. I'm like, wow, that just tastes like bitter water. That's not, I don't, I, that's not, I think I just ate too many cranberries as a kid. And so like now I just can't stand them. Like if I get like a oatmeal raisin cookie and there's cranberries in it, I get very upset. So yeah, that's how I feel.
Okay. Okay.
Let me preface by saying that I love cranberries, but my typical holiday spread is a little different than the I guess more commonly had one, and I've never had homemade cranberry spread or cranberry sauce. So the ones that I have had have all been garbage. So I'm not a fan of cranberry sauce.
I see in the chat we've got chutney. Adam Peterson, can's the only one you like. Okay. Homemade for Sonia, small amounts for Cody, potatoes only for Amber, and Alicia loves cranberry sauce. Both
Um,
homemade
I love
and the
all the
jelly.
cranberry sauce.
Anna Williams is team
This is
cranberry.
Anna.
I,
I
I'm
want all the
also,
cranberry sauce. The
I,
canned kind, the homemade kind. I want the chutney. Give me
yeah,
all of it.
I want the can like rolled out, sliced in little discs, just to like slurp them down.
Yes, yes. I'm so with you. My mom
Um,
just brought me a can of it for my house.
I have never met a cranberry that I liked. I want it all to go in the trash. I don't care if it is ocean spray in the can. I don't care if it's, the gourmet like chutneys that Robin's probably making, because I know Robin's probably got a nice Thanksgiving spread going on at her house, like with chopped cranberry with mint and all this sort of stuff. No, no, no. Like that cranberry sauce, maybe put it on the counter, but don't bring it to the table. That is it is by far the worst Thanksgiving side dish.
Yep. I'm like, bring me some mac and cheese. Bring me some mashed potatoes. Why are we playing here? Why are we trying to like distract ourselves from the truth? Like give me some of that turkey. You know? I
Yeah.
don't know.
I also have big feelings about the marshmallows on top of the yams. Like, I'm not on board with that either, gang.
you're
Like,
just hating today,
Don't
Adam.
come for the
Whoa.
yams.
I'm with it. I agree, Adam. I don't know. Maybe it's a black household thing. I could be wrong, but like I grew up. My family's from like Louisiana, so we have like sweet potato everything, right? Like we got pies, we got the yams, and if you make them right, you don't have to put marshmallows on. You can if you want to be like if you want to put like the Salt Bay, like sprinkle something on top of there, but like it's not needed if you just let them speak for themselves.
for those of you that are joining late, we're arguing about cranberry sauce this afternoon. So feel free to chime in or share in the chat how you feel about Thanksgiving cranberry sauce. Cameron, no. No. Stuffing is elite. That's like
Stuffing is terrible. Sorry, Adam, but stuffing is terrible. And
Yeah, I'm gonna
as
have
for
to agree
Robin,
there.
I
cranberries,
thought we were cool.
I'm gonna have to agree there. I think the typical stuffing that I see at Thanksgiving dinners is pretty
Hello.
gross.
Can everybody hear me? This is Ebony.
yep,
Yeah.
we can
Okay, so
hear you.
I'm sorry. I have to weigh in on the discussion. I'm driving. Um, but let me just say, dressing. I make cornbread dressing, not stuffing. I
Yeah.
make cornbread dressing, and that's what we do instead of stuffing. And the dressing is amazing.
Thank you,
girl, I'm down
Ebony,
for
for
that.
holding it
I'm down
down.
for cornbread dressing. That is different.
Yeah, we do dressing. We don't do
Yep.
stuffing, and it's amazing. I
hmm
love me some dressing.
You just gotta do it right. You know what I mean? Like it. I've had bad stuffing. I've had real bad dry and soggy. How do you even manage that, right? Like I've had bad stuffing, but like that type the type of dressing stuffing where like Big Mama or like your auntie's making it, and you're like, wow, I don't know what you put in this, but I'm taking this home. This whole tray is coming with me.
I love it. All right, so yeah, I'm seeing some love for dressing, not stuffing. So I'm seeing that in there. We have quorum, it looks like, from my count. So before I derail us too much, or before we start getting into virtual fights, literally, well, I'm going to move the Thanksgiving side dish chat to the chat. And we should probably get started. But thanks again, everybody. I do really love this little point of connection at the start of our meetings. I appreciate y'all humoring me. So. Annette, I think you're starting us off.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to our November 18th System of Care Advisory Council meeting. Glad to see you all here. Just going to go through what our agenda is for today. You can move the slide.
Trying to get it to advance. There we go.
We're going to have some, thank you so much, Corinna. We're going to have some membership updates. We're going to discuss our strategic pause for the System of Care Advisory Council subcommittees. We're going to have public comment at about 4:05. We're going to have a discussion and vote to approve HB 4151, the final report. And at the end, we'll make some announcements.
All right, let's go to roll call. So Allison Stark and Sonia Little Deer Evans.
Here.
I'm here.
Jackie Serrano and Sandra Santos.
Here.
Here.
Robin Henderson and Anderson Dubois. No Robin's here.
Robin left when people didn't like her turkey opinion.
Yeah, she's got bad Thanksgiving opinions. I'm just going to talk a little more trash since she's probably taking a quick phone call. But well, I'll mark Robin here. Anderson is not, or at least I don't see him. Kyle Johnson and Adam Peterson.
Adam's here.
Not seeing Kyle yet. Judge Marisa Gates and Jesus Nunez Pineda.
Jesus is here.
Okay, not seeing Judge Gates. Kati Mosley and Emily Cooper.
You just caught me as I put food in my mouth. Yes, this is Kati Mosley and I'm here. Apologies.
Is it cranberry sauce, Kati? Emily Cooper, not seeing her yet. Dan Toma and Cindy Cecil. Not seeing either of them. Ebony Clark, I don't know if it's easy for you to get off mute, but I know that you're here, so I will say that you are here.
Thank you. I'm here. I'm driving to AOC conference. I'm here.
Oh, nice. Nice. Thursday night is quite the night at the AOC conference, if you haven't been. So Krista Cousins and Zafir Michael Berry.
I'm sorry, I'm also stuck in my mouth. I'm here. This is Zafir.
Zafir. Thank you. Lacey Andreessen and Annette Magicotomy.
Here.
Okay, got Annette. Dana Hiddle and Andrew Grover. Okay. Alicia Overstreet.
Here. I'll be off camera probably for the whole meeting. I'm not feeling too good, so I will spare y'all.
Well, we're glad that you're here and hope that you feel better. Thanks for being here. And then, I'm Adam Rodakowski. I am here as well. If we could go to the next slide. group agreements. Family and youth are welcome to participate in the meeting at any time, as always. Folks from the public who are not youth or families, please wait till public comment period and contribute in the chat if you'd like. There's also ability to send a private chat to Joylene Carter, Alicia Overstreet, or Annette Magicotami if you want to say something or have something said, but not have your name attached to it. Let's be present and participate. Be respectful, avoid interrupting, and use names, pronouns folks introduce themselves with. Try and avoid acronyms to the best of our abilities. And then support in the chat to write definitions or ask for clarification if you need it, if somebody does use an acronym. Varied and opposing ideas are welcome. The challenge is against or toward an idea, not the person. Please be sure to honor those with quieter voices, lean in and lean back. No individual problem solving for situations, but we're happy to connect and work offline. Focus on the purpose, which is improving the system of care in Oregon. Be mindful of the power dynamics in the room that you and others hold. And as always, we want to be solutions oriented. So thank you all for maintaining those and agreeing to participate in that way. Next slide. And so we also use the GARE tool to consider racial disproportionality in all of our decisions. GARE is the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. It requires us to ask the following questions anytime we make a decision on policy, program, or budget. And these questions have been added to our consensus slide as well. Those are, what are the racial equity impacts of this decision? Who will benefit from or be burdened by this decision? Are there strategies to mitigate any unintended consequences? And is completion of the full racial equity worksheet warranted? And so we definitely appreciate the work that goes into those when we do have those full equity worksheets completed. And thank you, Cody, for doing one on our topic today that's been done that we'll be voting on a little bit later. Appreciate that. Okay.
All right, now we will have a membership report from our membership chair, Adam Peterson.
Hey,
Go
folks.
ahead, Adam.
Hi. Letting you all know that we are currently in recruitment for 5 open positions, one for a family member, one for a representative of child psychology, one for representative of pediatrics, or a pediatrician, and then one for a representative of coordinated care organization, and then one for a representative of a tribal representative. We had sent out an email for folks, a recruitment notice saying, please submit all applications to ensure full consideration by November 7th. So Anna and I have started looking at those applications, and we've got some really, really great people who are interested in being a part of the committee, which are to our council, which is awesome. And so we are looking to start scheduling interviews with folks who would meet with myself, Anna, and then one of our representatives from the lived experience perspective that first week in December. So we're really hoping to get a couple of these seats filled as soon as possible. And it is, we're excited about it. If you are somebody who is up for re-enrollment or re-upping your SOCAC membership, please make sure you're also submitting your own application in order to do so. If you are wondering, are you one of those people who does need to reapply right now? You only are if I've contacted you. If you're not on, if I haven't contacted you, your term is not over. So that is just something to note. And then also, all of us do have some training required that is due by the end of 2025. If you are having any challenges with getting your stuff in that needs to get in Workday, contact Corinna, and she will be your best point of contact at getting into Workday and helping support for technical assistance. So that is your membership report. Any questions about where we're at with any of the open positions or membership of SOCAC? Great, thank you all.
Cool. All right. Next topic we've got is, we have been meeting as a strategic planning core team, a small kind of subgroup of members that volunteered to participate from the full council. And so we've approved a strategic pause, is what we're calling it, and that will be for late December and early 2026. To allow staff some planning time and a little bit of breathing room. We're hoping to have a conversation for the next 40-ish minutes about what that pause will look like, what meetings are going to continue, and also try and do our best to answer questions and respond to concerns about that. This really is the goal of this, is to make sure that as we finish our strategic plan, we're doing some thoughtful, like, resetting, reorganizing, and planning to then roll out appropriate groups in the future in 2026. And so I believe that our staff here is going to kind of lead some of that conversation. And so I'm going to turn it over to those folks. I think, Christy, are you taking the lead on that, or?
I think Anna was going to get it started if she is available.
Well,
cool.
This is your friendly System of Care Advisory Council Executive Director. I am on the phone because I'm driving home from Salem, so I apologize for not being in person or electronically in person. So yeah, I think on the slide that you're probably looking at right now, you see, probably not very well because there's a lot of detail in it and it's small, but a chart of all of the different things that is sort of staff work that needs to be completed during this pause that the strategic planning core team approved. As we've built the strategic plan over the course of the last year, there's a lot of work that everyone wants staff to do, right? We need to improve our membership onboarding. We need to create a lived experience program. We need to improve our communications and qualifications and clarity around stipends and who's eligible and what activities are eligible and how do you know whether you're eligible to get paid for an activity or not before you do the thing, right? So there's a lot of sort of internal focus work that staff needs to do that is frankly really hard to accomplish when we're staffing and planning for meetings and continuing to have work added to our plates by meetings, right? So we proposed and the core team approved that we take a break from I think it's December 16th until end of February, beginning of March, something like that, right? Take about a 2.5 month, 3 month pause. The full council will still be meeting during that time on our regular cadence, but instead of doing decision making and hearing reports from subcommittees and that kind of thing, we're going to be doing some training together and some skill building together and culture building work, and those will be closed meetings. They're not going to be open to the public because it turns out it's really hard to be vulnerable and build relationships when you're in a fishbowl. And that is approved by the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. We did make sure that what we're trying to do is approved. So we're not in violation of public meetings law. We do need to have one meeting of the full council that is decision making or process meeting in the first quarter of 2026. So we will absolutely make sure that we are doing that. But I don't know if other staff want to kind of name out some of the activities that are on that list, or if folks want to really just talk about worries or fears they have. One of the things I think I should mention too is that we've talked about changing our committee structure, and this would be a time when that work is happening. So you will still be hearing from us as council members. You'll still be in conversation and communication with us, but we won't be having the DEI committee meeting and the legislative committee meeting. Instead, we'll be working together to figure out what does that new committee structure look like that actually meets the needs of the new strategic plan. So for instance, we've talked about having a policy committee that looks more at rules and OARs and agency rules, provider rules, as well as legislation, right? So a broader focus on our policy committee to really understand how policies in general affect the system of care rather than really just focusing on law changes. So that's an example of what a new committee might look like, but we haven't put that structure together yet. That will be in partnership with the executive team and the core team and would come back to the full council for discussion and decision. But we wanted to open up what are people's questions, what are people's concerns, so that as we're moving into the pause, we're able to be as responsive to those things as capacity allows. I don't know, Chrissy or Corinna or Joylene, if there's more you would add from your perspective, or Cody, sorry for beating you out.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add. But we're happy to answer questions, or if people want more detail on kind of like what's in this table you're seeing, I'm happy to pull that up. I think you explained it well though.
I have a comment. This is Ebony. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, go for it, Ebony.
Okay, awesome. I'll just honestly just say that I appreciate the pause just because, just like everyone else, I know that, when we're kind of in our various committees, and I know that probably many of us sit on multiple committees, it takes away from us in terms of our day job and moving our kind of, daily work forward. And, right now, in terms of getting prepared for a kind of short session, with us having to kind of navigate some implications around, the federal administration and needing to kind of, make some decisions or recommendations around just, budgeting and just all of that. I appreciate the pause. And I also think that just some of the examples that were brought forward will actually be a bit more transformative. And I think I'll appreciate it from OHA perspective side. So.
Hi, everybody. This is Joylene here. I just wanted to add a quick perspective to what Anna said so eloquently. I was in a meeting earlier today with a young person with lived experience, and they were giving us some great feedback about their experience joining SOCAC and getting involved. And they said something about how it almost felt like there's this train that's moving and there's an opportunity and they had to hop on like a 40-mile-per-hour train and figure out how to ride it. And I personally see this pause as a moment to build a station, right? We don't want a train that's always nonstop going. We need a spot where the train can stop and people can get on, get off if they want to, and then we move forward together. And so that's just a visual that came to me today, and I wanted to throw that into this conversation.
I love that, Julian. And I think one of the like literal applications of that is building the onboarding processes that Jesus and Zafir have worked so hard to help us craft. Right, we need to get that stuff ready to go so that when we are welcoming new members, as we welcome new members, we're actually like pausing and helping them orient rather than just being like, welcome, hop on. We're in midstream and 30 different work streams. So while I think it's always going to be overwhelming as a new member to the council, we can make it less overwhelming via the work we'll get done during the pause. I guess I'm curious about people, like, does anybody feel, oh, I'm worried we'll lose something if we pause, or I want to make sure this thing, we protect or honor or identify this thing that needs attention during the pause? Are there things that sort of you want to make sure that is on the radar on each other's radar as we move into a phase of fewer meetings that we need to protect or continue to communicate about, or whatever that might be.
Adam?
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like part facilitator, but I still feel like I need to raise my hand. So yeah, I think for me, I do get a little worried about uh short session, right? Just jumping up on us, and if we aren't meeting, so like I feel like there could be budgetary recommendations that we might want to be considering making in the light of, these current 2.5%, 5% budget reductions at state agencies that we might want to weigh in on. I know, we've talked about that a little bit about how we want to manage that, Annette and myself with Anna, and I can talk about that a little bit today, too. So that's one piece that I wonder about. I do think that the strategic pause now is the time to do it because so many folks are going to be in and out over the next month and a half anyway, that like we would probably have low attendance on many of our standing meetings. And so I do think it's an appropriate time to take a pause like this. So I think I'm in favor of it. My only worry off the top of my head would really be about the legislative short session and budget decisions occurring at the legislature.
And I don't know if there's other hands up, but if now's the right time to sort of describe what you and Annette and I discussed about that, very open to that, or if it's a later thing, I can't see the room, so.
Yeah, no, there's no other hands up at the moment. I thought I saw like some faces that were maybe pondering something, but nobody's raised their hand yet. So I can talk a little bit about that. I mean, no, there are, I think most of you know, there are agency exercises providing recommended budget cuts at different percentage levels across every state agency. Obviously, for the Children's System of Care Advisory Council, those that we would really be paying attention to would be the Department of Human Services budget, the Oregon Health Authority's budget, the Oregon Youth Authority's budget, the Oregon Department of Education's budget. All those obviously have really large impacts on kids. And so it is at this point just an exercise as well, right? We have 2 additional revenue forecasts that will be coming out before any of these changes would actually go into effect. So, but in an effort to not be overly reactionary if it does come to fruition, we've thought that for council members, we obviously aren't going to weigh in on every individual line item of cuts at those organizations. But if, as council members, you are looking through budgets in your area of expertise, and you see specific line items that you have concern about and you feel would have a large, negative impact on the children's system in Oregon, we want you to be flagging that and sending that on to our staff, right? Now, we talked about like maybe everybody take your top 3 line items as you're looking through them to send, as far as council members sending those. I don't know that we have a hard limit of 3, but we also have to be thoughtful that like we can't weigh in on everything, right? And so instead of having our limited staff time and capacity pour through each budget, we really are asking our council members to do their homework, look at the areas of the budget that they are most knowledgeable about, and provide feedback about the most significant concerning line items to Anna and staff. And then we can meet as kind of an ad hoc smaller group of those that are interested to really dig into those and consider which we would want to stand up and say, please do not do this because it will have this impact, this, ultimately really negative impact. I think about the Oregon Youth Authority budget, that a 5% cut to them is pretty devastating. And that number is only, $20 million. And I say only, but to the Youth Authority, that's a huge hit. And it's a huge hit to some of our most fragile kids that need that support. Whereas a $20 million reduction, and again, not to like put, another agency against each other, but like a $20 million hit to the Oregon Department of Human Services is almost budget dust sometimes. And so, thinking about those sorts of values decisions that we want to consider would be on my mind. So, Allison, go ahead.
So I want to just be clear. I don't have a problem with the pause generally. And I think it probably is a good idea. And I think I'm probably one of the people that feels that the relationship development piece might be a kind of nice bonus because I think that does feel sometimes like it is lacking. So I think that's great. With that being said, I think one of the challenges I continue to face is what is the role of the SOCAC. And so, I'm the one who sent some concerns around the DHS budget and potential cuts that were being evaluated and how I saw it potentially impacting some of the work that we're doing. And so the question is, are we integral in having a voice in this and being a partner in this process and giving feedback and advocating, or are we not? And I think I was struggling. I'm just struggling with that a little bit. Like, how can we have a strategic pause during legislative, unless this is not our purview? And I guess that's where I'm coming down is that, and I think, Alicia also has put in, around the barrier resolution that like, if a key part of our job is to do some of these things, then it seems strange that we would stop doing them for a period of time. But then I guess the question is who determines, I know we have it in written in various places, but I think the reality is that we have to be really clear what our responsibilities are, and is the strategic pause taking us away from that?
Yeah, good points. And I'm just trying not to take up too much space. That's why I'm kind of pausing to see if anybody else has, the room to put their hand up. Yeah, that's valid. And yes, I think, our mandate is right to be a forum for policy development, funding, strategy, recommendations, and planning. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think we need to be mindful of that, especially that short session piece, right? Like the planning, that is our strategic planning, getting ready to implement that in the next 3 years. That's part of the strategic pause. Same with the policy development. But there is, yeah, if we take a pause, there are things that are going to be happening, right? The rest of the system won't stop for us to take that break. Zafir.
I have a slight concern that isn't with the plan itself, but or really the strategic pause. I think the pause itself is a good idea, especially with how much work that needs to get done from staff in that short amount of time. December 16th to sometime in February, early March. One of the things I am a little wary of is me and I'm not going to speak for Jesus, but me and Jesus worked really hard on getting as much done as far as the onboarding process went. And we stopped working on it because like new processes and things like that, it just wasn't needed in that moment to be working on. And I'm hoping that what we were worried about doesn't happen, where it's just, okay, give us all that you worked on and we're going to finish it. Because, I'm worried that it's going to become a situation where all our hard work is just going to be like taken, and then like our baby's going to be taken and raised as like someone else's child. That's kind of what I'm worried about. as far as like some parts of the onboarding implementation. I just felt the need to point that out as I'm sitting here listening to the few other issues, and I'm hoping that given that a lot of this is given that a lot of this is youth centric and it's supposed to be based off work that we have already done, I hope that it's still going to be done in collaboration with us, and it's not going to be done just with our ideas. That's my misgiving.
Thank you, Zafir. Other thoughts? We've got plenty of time, folks. So if you've got feelings or opinions, now's the time to share them.
Julie has a question in the chat. How does this impact the new positions coming up in January? The family role.
The family roles, like the new council member position. So it wouldn't. I think we would still. I think we have to wait until January. Adam Peterson, correct me if I'm wrong here, friend. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we can't even start recruiting for them until the positions exist, and they don't exist until January. And so we'll begin, like we're going to begin recruitment soon after the beginning of the year. And hopefully that the new cohort of people who are coming on that are being recruited right now will be the first test pilots in an onboarding process. So Zafir, as we kind of get closer to getting these people through the process, the nominating process, I would love to connect about the onboarding process that you and Jesus have started to work on, to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts in any way, because we want to make sure that it is all in line with each other. So that's Julie, and to answer your question, it will have no impact on the new positions, but when they come online, we'll be following an onboard, like the development of the onboarding process.
Zafir.
I just want to clarify. I specifically mean the youth onboarding, because I know that the youth were supposed to handle what their onboarding looked like. Family committee was going to handle what their onboarding looked like. I just mean specifically youth onboarding, not so much member onboarding. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, we'll follow up with that, because I think the intent is that youth are helping them ensure that everyone is onboarded in a way that creates space and recognition for partnership, youth adult partnership, and same for family, right? So there's more work to do during the strategic pause of how we put that together, and that will be done in collaboration with you all. But some of the onboarding work that applies across the board is going to come from the work that you all have done and will be doing, if that makes sense, because letting people know what youth expectations are of professional new members, PCO members, right, agency new members, that's going to come from your voice, not you as an individual necessarily, but you as a group.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And I'm not sure what time this agenda item is over, but I heard somebody say something about barriers.
Yeah, we've got.
Maybe it was when Allison was talking.
Yeah, we've got 20 minutes roughly. So I think somebody was and was it you, Allison, that was talking about the barrier process change?
No, I was just saying Alicia raised somewhat of a similar point that I was raising of what is the role of the SOCAC, and if a key mandate is to deal with barrier resolutions, if it's a key mandate is to weigh in on legislation, that to pause that feels strange to me.
Got it. So in terms of Senate Bill 1, and y'all are welcome to, yep.
This is Ebony. I'm sorry, I'm driving. And I'll just say from my perspective, and I just think too, it's important to evaluate the effectiveness of I'm thinking about the barrier resolution as an example of like how effective have current process been in barrier resolution, to the point too where I do think it's important to evaluate and assess that, to then look at, is there a better kind of process or strategy that improves efficacy? So just want to throw that out there too.
Appreciate that, Ebony. And I think you all may be surprised to know that the word barrier does not exist anywhere in the SOCAC mandate. That is a mandate for our local system of care partners via the CCO contract, but barrier resolution is not actually anywhere in the legal mandate regarding system of care advisory council at the state level. We put a ton of time and energy into it, but it isn't actually our mandate. So that I think is an interesting point of fact. And then regarding, our other responsibilities, the Senate Bill 1 says the primary duty of the council is to create and maintain a long range plan for the improvement of the system of care. And so that's sort of where we're hanging our hats on the pause, is sort of how do we implement the strategic plan as our sort of primary reason for being. And part of that looks at what legislation might need to change, what funding strategies might need to change, right? And so, but it isn't limited to those things. And so I think there could be a matter of interpretation. And I don't know any of the folks who were part of that conversation. I can only think of Robin Henderson, who might be in the room, who was there with the creation of Senate Bill 1, if there's anything to say about that in terms of intent. Robin, I wasn't there when Senate Bill 1 was written, but.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. In terms of intent, it's the intention of looking at the policies that are coming out and the legislation that's coming out and making sure that it's coordinated through. And I think a great example is House Bill 4151, where people are talking about a workforce specific to children's behavioral health that needs to be done in the view of the council. And that was the intention, so that there was one permanent infrastructure that, instead of standing up a new task force every time an issue came up in the children's system, there was a task force that existed that had people rotating on and off that could hold those processes, whether it was the entire council or a task force of the council under their supervision. Has it worked that way perfectly? Not exactly. Did we have a specific mandate to legislation? I think that's debatable. I think that was the intention, that we have the ability to make recommendations and think about that. But we got so involved in that process of legislation that we didn't fully develop out the pieces of looking at existing policy and rule and ensuring that our voice is at the tables of existing policy and rule. And I was sharing with Anna earlier today, I'm on a task force for the crisis system. And there was a ledge concept that came through that basically said, well, the state will figure out youth. Okay, the state will figure out youth. That's not going to work for us, because that's not how this should go. It should be a more thoughtful process and needs to be something that's done in coordination with the variety of voices at this council, especially for something as important as the crisis system. So that's, I think where we've got to figure out, how do we strike that balance? And as the person who led the legislative committee for the last few years, it's a lot of work to do it the way that we did it. It needs to have more balance. I hope that answered the question, Anna.
I didn't have an expected answer. It was really helpful. And I think, to your point, Robin, around how much work we put into it versus how effective were we really, like, there were probably 100 bills that impacted the children's system that we didn't look at or didn't have time to review and weigh in on. So, I'm not sure that we currently are structured to be that children's policy clearinghouse. If that's what we want to do, that's a conversation we need to have, and that's not what our strategic plan sort of identifies. So that, that'll be a major change in direction. But if that's where the council wants to go, then that's a conversation to have at the council level for sure.
Other questions, comments, or thoughts?
Allison, were you, just thinking back to what you had said, what I hear is maybe a concern regarding missed opportunities during the short session. and that we're not going to be meeting or really talking about any bills that come up. Is
Yeah.
that kind of what you're getting at? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I guess, for example, there's, and I understand that the likelihood that something that's maybe 55 in a list of 100 things, of being potentially considered might not be something that sees the light of day. But I think maybe I feel a little bit of concern that, there is, the suggestion coming out of DHS, which is a little surprising, that they would not disregard parental income for youth that need services in the IDD service system. And I think this is the service system that we often point to as the only one that's kind of working in a more upstream kind of way. And so there's like a lot of desire to build other service systems around it that's more preventative and supportive. And the vast majority of kids that are getting services in the IDD system is in their own homes, which is the appropriate place for folks to get, services. And so what I would hate to see is something as serious as that get any sort of legs, and that there's not, kind of an ability to use, if that's our purview and our responsibility, to use this, vehicle to have that discussion. So I guess that's what I'm saying. But to the point that is being made, we're trying to do things differently. There are going to be things that we can't get to because we need to focus on the strategic priorities, and maybe being reactive is something we give up in the, in the interim. So I'm okay. I just want to be clear. I'm like totally okay with the strategic pause. I just, I feel a heightened sense of responsibility to, Oregon around some of the impacts of HR1 and how they're going to be implemented here. And it just feels like a really important time to step out or step back from the conversation.
So yeah, to that concern, Allison, like, do you think that kind of discussion that I shared about individual council members bringing kind of those, essentially what you're referring to, right? That would be a top line from your expertise, right? Your lane, totally, right? So we would love it for you as an active council member to send that and then be a part of that group that would be meeting if those cuts are actually moving towards occurring. So that I think, does that get to what you're wanting to make sure we don't miss during this pause? Because
yes,
continue to do that. Okay.
Yeah, I think that, but also, there's been a re-emphasis, which I think is good. And I feel like I'm talking way too much. And so if nobody else has a concern, this is just an Allison thing, and that's okay too. But, we keep talking about how everything needs to be done in public meetings, that we need to make sure that there's a process and a system in place, and that we're not having, behind the scenes or, so I want to make sure that I'm doing this also in a designated forum and in a way, and without that structure in place, right? If you don't have legislative committee meetings, there's not a designated structure where this is meant to be talked about. And so those are the things that I'm referencing.
Gotcha.
I would agree with you, Allison. That's a huge risk. I don't disagree with you at all. What it's trying to figure out, and I think part of my advice in this is somebody who's terming off the council at this stage in the game. Part of my advice in this was we're walking into a short session, which is not supposed to include anything controversial. So there have been a few things already floated out there that are fairly controversial, that as we're hearing about controversial things, we're going, hey, wait a minute, red flag. This probably isn't a short session issue. This is a long session issue. I haven't seen any LCs drop yet. I've heard a lot of rumors about a lot of different things, but I haven't seen anything drop yet. And from what I'm hearing, again, there should be nothing controversial coming through short session. If there is, I think that my advice to the next council would be to pull together a meeting of some kind. I'm hoping that I'll still have a seat on the policy committee of some kind, because I don't totally want to crawl off in a hole and die. But, I mean, I think we're going to have to be sure to communicate. This was the lowest risk chance time to do this, the lowest risk time to do it. And they've got to figure out who's going to step up and run this committee. Because when I go away, I can't run this committee. And so somebody's going to have to take that mantle, and I think that's undefined as well. That said, I also have recommendations about other tables that may be a safe haven in the interim. One of them being the child and adolescent provider group, and things like that, and the good old utilization of email. But I think Adam and Annette, actually, it's going to be Adam because Annette's terming off with me, is going to have to figure out what happens in January if a big ugly bill drops, and we're going to have to be reliant on the idea of pivot.
Yeah, I think, yeah, yes to all of that, right? I'm pretty sure and if I certainly hope I'm wrong, not wrong, but I'm pretty sure that individual council members sending priority notes to the staff is fine because we're not talking amongst, it's not serial conversation. It's not discussing a vote about a thing. It's just sharing of information that you are an expert in. And then if we have group meetings for interested council members that are public and posted, right? I think that's all on the up and up to then make those decisions about, we're really going to flex on making sure that we don't start counting parental income for youth with IDD eligibility, right? Like those sorts of things. So I think that I'm pretty sure that's all legit. And if I'm, now I'm second guessing myself, but I'm pretty
No,
sure.
you're right, Adam.
Okay. I'm like, God, I hope we didn't make a mistake here. So yes to all of that, but I appreciate the voicing of the concern and making sure that we're being, above board on all this because we definitely don't want anything to look like it's being done, in the dark or kind of, yeah, without inclusion of all. So it may
So we
be.
may even want to do a council meeting where we bring, if we have that budget conversation, right? Because we do need to have a quarterly sort of substantive meeting per Senate Bill 1, that quarterly substantive meeting, and we'll notice for any other small group meetings that we would have around the budget or policy concerns or whatever. But in that full council meeting, maybe we meet for an hour or whatever, but we make some decisions during the short session about how we weigh in on those things. That is entirely something within the scope and capacity that we can make sure we're doing. And I think this conversation is exactly to make sure we're thinking about those things. So it's been really helpful for me.
Yeah. And I just want to be clear. I don't think it's an Allison thing.
No, it's not just an Allison thing. Because I'm going to just add that while short sessions generally don't contain policy bills that are controversial, we very well may see some in this one because of the budget issues that are well known. And I think the thing that Allison brought up is, one of the impacts of those budget issues. There's, many lines on the different proposed cut lists that we might want to talk about and be concerned with. But I'm comfortable with that plan you just mapped out of if a member spots something that raises concern that could, damage the system of care we're trying to help build, then we bring it to the staff and we address it in a meeting as best we can.
Other thoughts or discussion points? See in the chat, Alicia said, but isn't that also what the barrier resolution process is supposed to help identify? I'm not sure that I'm fully tracking your question, so I'm not sure how to answer it. Somebody else in relation to what Andrew just said.
I can try and jump in
Try
here. Go ahead, Alicia.
I'm so sorry. I can try to elaborate. I guess I understand that like finding out now that apparently SOCAC does not have any requirement to do the state level barriers or barrier submission or resolutions, right? Because I guess it's not in Senate Bill 1. Excuse me. But to the point, I guess, that has been raised over the last few minutes is that the we can create these kind of ad hoc committees to then address an issue. But if we can't actually get those issues up to the SOCAC, how do we know that there are issues and barriers happening at the local level? So I guess not to say that the barrier resolution process is supposed to be the sole way for information to come up to the SOCAC. Excuse me, I am so sorry. But that could be a way to bring kind of these issues and barriers to the SOCAC, if that makes any sense, or if that elaboration makes more sense now. But I guess we are going to be talking about it later again. So to me, it's not necessarily anything that we have to, hone in on right now. I just wanted to throw that out as a potential tool that the SOCAC could use to receive information.
Yeah, I can jump in here, Alicia. Yeah, we will talk about it more tomorrow at the executive committee. And SOCAC staff will continue with the current proposal. SOCAC staff will continue to review the 6-month barrier reports that local systems of care are going to continue to submit to OHA as part of their CCO contract requirements. So we'll continue to look at that data, look at it, summarize it, bring it to SOCAC, see what you all want to do with it in terms of incorporating any of it into the strategic plan. I think what we were talking about earlier, though, with Andrew's point is more an immediate need to flag any legislative concepts that come up during the February session, and those are very separate processes. The barrier reports that local systems of care are submitting to us are delayed by usually about 6 months. That data only comes in every 6 months. So by the time we hear about it, those issues have been in place for a long time. And okay, you get it. I'm sorry, you sound really sick. I'm sorry.
That time of year, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I didn't hear, I heard we talked through some concerns that folks had, right? I think, somewhat resolved those. I think I didn't hear anybody be like, whoa, what in the world are you guys doing? No way, we can't do this. So is there any last questions, comments from council members or the team, the SOCAC staff, that they want to say before we move towards public comment at 4:05? And it is 4:01 now for those of you that are driving. Okay, hearing none. So I think, Joylene, no additional comments from you, but I thought you had a great one. Talking, that analogy of, building the station for people to get on the train. That one burned into my brain. That was a pretty good one. So I appreciate that. Well done. And so yeah, okay. Well then, we will, right? Yeah, I truly appreciate that. So you will see some shifts to come. We will stay in tuned again with the legislative session as it's getting ready to roll. And we'll make sure that we have opportunities to publicly discuss any things that pop up. And please, again, committee members, if you have budget reduction line items that you have seen, whether it's in your specific area of expertise or larger to the system of care, you don't have to, I won't commit to only worrying about child welfare matters on this one, because I also feel pretty strongly about some of the concerns around cutting OYA in a similar way. So yeah, please do send those on to Anna, Christy, Joylene, Corinna. Yeah, send them over. Whoever they get to, we'll make sure we organize them and share those to be ready to voice our opinions if the time comes. With that, I'm gonna close our discussion on the strategic pause.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Thank you, everyone. Now we're open for public comment. So we'll take public comment, and Selby, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Selby Stebbins. I'm the System of Care Coordinator for the Tri-County System of Care. And so that's Washington, Clackamas, and Multnomah counties. And recently there were some opportunities for local systems of care to give some feedback. And I provided that feedback to SOCAC staff, and they encouraged me to also speak to it during the public comment period. And so I am here today. And this is me. I'm speaking only on behalf of Tri-County System of Care, and I'm summarizing feedback from my membership. So it's not my direct feedback. It's a summary of concerns that were brought to me from my membership. So the first feedback opportunity is related a little bit to what you were just talking about, which is the possible sunsetting or stopping of the SOCAC barrier policy and procedures, the SOCAC barrier resolution efforts. And so the primary concern coming from my local members around this idea is just, if you remove that policy and that process, please just don't leave a vacuum with nothing there. Because the great thing about the existing process, or what we have appreciated locally, is that it provides an advocacy channel and there's accountability attached to it. So again, if you remove that channel for advocacy, what alternatives do we have? And I completely understand and recognize that SOCAC staff is very willing to help connect local systems of care to subject matter experts and state agency partners, but there can also be a feeling that without an accountability piece attached to that communication loop, that we are just sending emails about local concerns that we feel we can't resolve, that those emails will just go into an email box, maybe have a pleasant conversation, and then get dropped. And so again, if you change that process or remove it, don't just leave a vacuum there, to have some kind of minimal advocacy or accountability options. And the third question related to that was that even to Christy said this a few minutes ago, that SOCAC will be receiving those mandated 6-month barrier reports from local systems of care. And some of that information could be incorporated into the new strategic plan. But again, the local members really had a question of like, okay, how? Again, that's that accountability piece. How are we going to be really reassured from an accountability perspective that as those barrier reports come up, that they are potentially, again, at the council's direction, incorporated into the new strategic plan. The second feedback opportunity was actually around the new draft strategic plan. And my members had lots of ideas, questions, positive feedback, but there were 3 particular points that they requested I elevate. And so I'm also bringing those to you today. The first one is that there's really a concern about the lack of upstream focus in the system of care, the draft strategic plan. That system of care, at least in Tri-County, and I think statewide, we tend to default to our youth who already have complex challenges going on in their lives. And so the early childhood population of 0 to 5-year-olds, where we can really do upstream prevention, is not incorporated in quite as active way, or it doesn't appear to be. And so there was a lot of concern about this 0 to 5 population, or these really early prevention strategies and their explicit inclusion into the draft plan. And alongside of that was a question of, if that population is really hard to incorporate into system of care's work, that maybe the age range for our system of care work should change, and really instead we be partnering with the Early Learning Hub or DELC, Department of Early Learning and Care, or whomever, to really address those prevention needs. Second is that to please complete a very thorough assessment of other systems of care that are more functional, and all of these different ideas outlined in the plan before investing continuing resources around restructuring or how the resources are allocated. That Oregon has a history of funding and closing programs and trying all these different things that don't get us to where we want to be. And we did look at goal 4 in the strategic plan, which is related to transformation of the larger system of care. And there's not actually an explicit kind of research goal called out, or research strategy or objective called out in that goal 4 section. And finally, this is coming from someone with lived experience, and who's also has a peer services experience and is a peer services provider, just saying that, feeling like that we really need some radically new, different approaches to reach families from communities that are historically and currently underserved. And we need radically new approaches to reach them in different ways, using new creative ways. And this feeling that kind of a lot of the strategies suggested are just kind of more of the same that have been suggested in the past, but don't seem to be coming to fruition. And this idea of really wanting to look for new creative strategies and feeling like those could be better represented in the plan. So thank you. That's the end of my comments.
Thanks, Sylvie. I appreciate that feedback and appreciate the work you do. I don't have like a response, bullet for bullet, but I do have a response for kind of the discussion about not seeing a focus on upstream prevention 0 to 5 work in the strategic plan. And that is actually a decision that I think has been made by the System of Care Advisory Council, that is not our focus, and won't be our focus for the next 3 years of this plan, and perhaps and I'll be off the council by the time the next plan's created, so it'll be up to those people. But it is absolutely not going to be the area of focus for us. And that is because there are plenty of cool groups that are doing a lot of 0 to 5 prevention upstream work. And we're happy that they're there and doing that work. And somebody has to focus on the most complex and challenging problems that are existing for our highest acuity and needs youth, and that's going to be our focus. And so I do have a response for that one. And then the other thing I would say is, if as far as radical new approaches to reach family members, I appreciate that feedback, and if y'all have them, we welcome the specificity of those of those strategies as well, right? And ideas. So yeah, I would just welcome. We want to do better, right? We're always striving to do better. I think we do a pretty darn good job. I think Joylene and team do a pretty darn good work trying to engage families. And yes, we need to find different, more innovative ways. And so if y'all have ideas, I'm sure we would love to talk about those too. So thank you. I really, truly do appreciate you.
Thank you. Karen?
Hi, Annette. Thanks. It's pronounced Corinne. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. similar to Selby's comment around the barrier breaking process, I received some of the same feedback around if this is going to sit with the CCOs, just some questions around where it will go. Per the contract with OHA that we have, is that we escalate barriers to the State System of Care Steering Committee. And so wondering what will happen to that. Like, who is that now? These aren't questions you have to answer, obviously, but if you do, that'd be great. But hoping that these are a part of the discussions that you guys have tomorrow. Like, who is this steering committee? Because from what I understand and recall, the steering committee was SAS, which was also working with SOCAC to do some of that barrier resolution processing. And so I don't know if it exists anymore. So bringing that back, wondering who this state system of care will be that would review the barriers per CCO contract, if we will still require CCOs to continue that barrier breaking process. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Anna. Can you hear
Anna,
me?
go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, so Corinne, we, don't have the exact name and structure and strategy for that yet, but we had a conversation at SAS, and I think you were there, of this cross system space seems to really work, and will we only work on a set number of barriers, and those how do we handle that escalate? We don't know those things yet, right? And I think that's part of what Ebony was referring to earlier as chair of that state agency standing committee or SAS space of there's real differences in based on sort of where people sit as to the effectiveness of the barrier process once a barrier gets escalated to the state. And so that's all stuff that we're going to continue to work on together. We have the sort of top 6 barriers that had been escalated to the state from the local systems that are in the existing strategic plan, and we're going to work those for now. But in terms of alignment with the CCO contract, that's kind of a challenging question because that contract, we don't have authority over that contract, right? So we want to be in alignment with you all, absolutely. And how that happens is sort of a dialogue and not just there's a clear right answer here. We have to continue to work with our partners at the Oregon Health Authority to figure out sort of how to, or if there's a way to build more explicit alignment between the locals and the state.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. This is Ebony. And I'll just say that during the interim, I'll take the next week to continue to make sure that between Behavioral Health Division and Medicaid Division that we have a clear point of contact that can, help be a place for responsivity and bringing forward solutions during the interim. I know that at this point in time, there's not going to be a change in the CCO requirement, but I'm committed to looking at making sure at least during the interim, what is that place and space, and so I'll be tracking that and following up.
Thank you, Ebony. Any other during our public comment period? If you'd like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand. Hold on just a second, Alicia. Let me see if there's anyone for public comment. I don't see any other hands, so go ahead, Alicia.
I'm going to put it in the chat. I don't think I can talk. I'll put it in the chat and we can all read it in the chat.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, not seeing any other hands up during this public comment period. I don't know if there's a break on the schedule. I don't think so. But I think we're going to move right into the 4151 final discussion.
Yes. So yeah. And that's me to kind of intro that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know Anna's on the phone, and will do her best to review and answer any questions that were submitted last time regarding the House Bill 4151 report. We also have you used Kate, right? Kate McLaughlin?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I was like, I see Katie McLaughlin, but I'm like, but I'm pretty sure you go by Kate. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
So Kate, we also have Kate from the Ballmer Institute and the U of O here to answer detailed questions. I know Vera with the Oregon Alliance had a personal thing pop up and is unable to be here with us. So we're going to go through and discuss the questions that were remaining or received, and then we're going to go ahead and take a vote on this one. So this will end right around 4:55, half hour-ish, 40 minutes from now, with a vote about whether we will approve the final report that was shared at the last, I think it was shared out last week, or 2 weeks ago. So with that, I think I will let Anna maybe go.
Thanks, Adam. Corinna, can you pull up from that email I sent last Wednesday the questions with answers? It's kind of it's a document that has like a chart on it with the council members' questions and then the responses to them.
She's got it up.
All right, and can you help me because I can't read and I'm not even on video.
Yeah.
What is the first question?
Yeah, I will absolutely read the questions for you and then let you respond, and then we can see if folks, I can manage the kind of group, and then we'll kind of go about it that way if that works for you, Anna.
That sounds great.
Cool. Okay, the first question was around pay parity. How would the recommendation to align rates with cost actually work? It seems a little recursive that measuring cost based on artificially low salaries would then make the estimated cost artificially low. And that is from David Retu, doctor, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the first question.
So, and then the response actually came from conversations with the folks who participated in the rate study itself, and Adam, you may be one of them, where the survey, talks about the cost of staffing, but also additional costs and what is the real cost of providing the care as opposed to how much are you paying your staff today, right? So it's intending to build in what you should be paying your staff, what you should be paying additional support people. It's intended to actually address the full cost of care. I think there's always going to be sort of some artifacts of, this is work that has historically been a very low paying profession in that sort of frontline worker space. And we're not going to, solve that overnight by putting a pay parity structure in place. And it's sort of one step in that same direction that I think your concern was rooted in, which was how do we actually get people to closer to a living wage? So there's some writing on that in the equity analysis that was sent out last Wednesday as well. And I don't know if there's more questions or discussion about it, but that is the response to that question.
Yeah, I did participate in the Myers and Stauffer rate study as a provider. They did ask for current pay and I forget what they called it, maybe sustainability rate or something like that. Or an aspirational rate. To be honest, I haven't seen the results of that. They said it was going to be sometime this fall, but I haven't heard a peep about it actually since I submitted it. So, and I'm not sure what their methodology is to take that sustainability or that aspirational rate truly into account. So I know they have received it from providers, but I don't know what the methodology is that will then result in a final product. But yeah.
Well, and Vera's not here, but I think that's what the recommendation was to be more transparent with what that rate methodology is and to share that information and continue to do something similar or adjust it, with feedback so that we're actually doing some ongoing rate studies instead of just setting a floor and then moving forward and then, maybe getting momentum around it in 8 years or 10 years again when it becomes a crisis.
Gotcha. That is exciting to hear, and I'm excited to see it. Any questions, comments on that first question? We move to the next.
Yeah, this is David. I just want to say, I accept the response, and I think I read this earlier, so I accept all the responses for all the questions I did at the last meeting.
Right on.
Appreciate that, Dr. Ritsu.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. And we will, I think we still should probably read them and just make sure that other folks don't have further follow-up. As long as that's okay with other folks. So yeah, might it be better to align based on similar jobs outside of behavioral health? This again is about pay parity.
Adam, can you just read the answer?
I totally can. The recommendation was limited to behavioral health positions because the scope of House Bill 4151 was specific to behavioral health, but it doesn't prevent collaboration with other systems to align rate setting methodologies. And I think that is important simply because we have nonprofits that have pay parity issues in their own organizations based on different contracting entities that are paying different rates for similar services and similar job descriptions. And so, yeah, I think that is a fair question and concern to raise. Anything that you would add to that, Anna?
No, I think it's a great flag.
Okay. Questions or comments from other folks on that? Okay. So the next is around the new credential. So why was psychotherapy not listed as outside the scope of practice for this new credential? Realizing that there's a very fuzzy boundary between what is called psychotherapy and what is called intervention, using quotes. And it sounds like that was a formatting error. The section that discussed psychotherapy being explicitly outside the scope of this certification was covered up in the PDF accidentally, not intentionally. It was included in the language the work group voted on and is now visible in the updated report. So it sounds like that was just an important correction and inadvertent error. So
that was where Kate was like, yeah, no, it's in there on page 16. And Dr. Chu was like, no, it's not. Like, I was like, am I crazy? It was both in there and not in there. And now it is actually just in there.
It happens. Yeah, totally. But good flag again, right? To make sure that we're not breezing by that. Any other comments on that one? I think that one's pretty straightforward, but I'll give a little space. Okay. Again, on the new credential, there's a list of topics on page 16 listed as outside scope of practice. Okay, same response. Okay, moving on. Clearinghouse. What kind of quality assurance would happen to prevent low quality and predatory, quote, trainings being advertised and promoted in that clearinghouse? You want me to read that, Anna?
Sure.
Okay. That way you can, focus on driving. Members of the subcommittee shared this as a concern. To address this, members discussed the benefit of having a contracted entity to manage the clearinghouse so that training content can be vetted for quality to reduce the burden of reviewing and selecting trainings for individual providers and organizations. So it will be incumbent on the Oregon Health Authority to ensure their contract includes this work in scope of practice. Any further comment from Anna or Kate on that, or questions from the crew?
But I'll just say again, I think that was a sort of an underlying reason why the clearinghouse was recommended, was like, we want a place where we can go to find trainings that we can trust, that we know meet the standards that Oregon has set. And so that's sort of a foundational assumption of, if it's getting put in the clearinghouse, it's been vetted. That's why the clearinghouse would exist. So we can't promise that every training on there would be the best training you could go to, but the intent is that there would be that would say, you vet them and make sure they meet Oregon standards and, are legal in terms of the recommendations they're making within Oregon. We have very specific statutes, right? So that is kind of the point of the clearinghouse. So that's what I would say.
All right. I'm getting flack for calling some people doctor and not other people doctors. Too many doctors in this room, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just going to start calling everybody doctor just to be safe for the rest of the meeting. It is not. It is not an intentional slight, and you all earned the title, and I absolutely respect that, and appreciate the effort that you put. Yeah, except for the lawyers. Yeah, I have feelings about lawyers. So okay. Um, sorry, Judge Gates. Again on the new credential, I'm curious to know what requirements would be needed for people who have previously received a bachelor's degree in a youth behavioral health service field and have not been practicing for multiple years. Those currently in training would have the clinical supervision covered as part of their tuitions, I'm assuming. If people wanted to practice in this realm, how would they go about, quote, refreshing their skills? Would they have to pay again for that training, or would that be assessed through a certification program? So it sounds like this was another question that was discussed in the work group. They determined that pathways for students or providers to obtain this credential in an alternative pathway, like someone with a bachelor's degree in psychology without applied training, would be up to the credentialing body and part of the recertification process. So, kind of a little bit of pushing that onto the credentialing body, which is the Board of Psychology, I believe. Yes, Robin? Okay. I'm like,
Maxbo. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and we talked to them about it, and they said that would be the appropriate way to handle it, that those things exist in other spaces. And so, like, if you get the certification or you want to get recertified, there are processes that are defined by rule.
Okay.
And I think I talked over you, Robin.
You're totally fine. No, I was going to say pretty much the same thing. In the conversations with the Mental Health Regulatory Agency, this would be under the purview of the Oregon Board of Psychology, much like they do in other places, and would be appropriate there. And I think in my conversations with Dr. McLaughlin from the Balmer Institute, it's been impressive to hear the thinking about how this pathway could potentially work in the future in a variety of different ways, including in, other types of college programs and things like that. So I think there's definitely some standards that the board is going to need to throw in there, but there's a pathway.
Yeah, and I can just jump in. I'm on my car. I hope y'all can hear me. But we talked about this really briefly in the 4151 working group. And it was agreed that there should be a research ultimately, how that would happen, where the training would happen, how many hours would be left to the Board of Psychology to decide on in the rulemaking process around this new credential. And so the draft bill language that's being written up around this new credential specifically makes it clear that there should be a recertification pathway, and that will be something the board will decide on in terms of exactly how that would get implemented in the rulemaking process.
thank you, Kate. Dr. McLaughlin. Yes. Alicia, you had your hand up for a moment.
No, I think I'll pass for today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Just wanted to make sure I didn't lose you. Any other questions, comments on that one? All right. Next question is again around the credential. What does compensation look like for supervisors, and how would that be funded? So compensation for supervisors determined by their employers. Medicaid may fund this if existing billing codes allow for it. In the future, new billing codes may need to be recommended to support supervision compensation. Anything to add? Questions, comments about that one?
I just want to make it clear that billing codes do not typically require a state plan amendment. I know there are some folks who are very worried that this work might open up a requirement to amend our existing Medicaid state plan. And my understanding, and Kate, feel free to add anything or not that you would to this topic, but the Balmer Institute has been really thoughtful about structuring this in a way that doesn't require a state plan amendment to start getting people into the work. Is that accurate?
Yes, you've got it. I mean, we've worked with a consultant who used to be OHA's Medicaid director for the state to just make sure we were getting good counsel on how this might work through OHA if it were actually passed. And the idea would be, at least as an initial step, because this is a supervised credential, that these folks would bill through their supervisors, and that not only is possible, but that would be possible without requiring a state plan amendment to enact. And so that would be, I mean, obviously, we would work closely with OHA and Care Oregon to work through implementation should this pass. But the idea would be to do this in a way that that is as simple as possible, and that would work through the supervisors of these new professionals in terms of billing Medicaid.
Thoughts, questions, comments on this one, gang?
The only other thing that I would add in there is that it's not typical for Medicaid to pay for supervision. So some of these are considered in the cost of doing business, whether it's an agency who's billing for these services and then paying their employees and building that into their costs, or if it's the employee themselves paying for that. And so it's not typically something that is Medicaid reimbursable for supervision specifically.
Thanks, Robin. That's helpful. It's disappointing.
Yeah. Uh-huh. A lot of that going around, I think, Anna, in the Medicaid space these days. Okay. Concern verbally from Jesus in the last System of Care Advisory Council meeting that the new credential may supplant or replace peer-delivered services and thereby decrease access to a preferred support mechanism for people with lived and living experience. She also named a concern that adding a bachelor's level credential could have a negative impact on peer workers' ability to find living wage jobs in their field of choice. So during the System Care Advisory Council meeting on November 4th, Cody Welty, our own, suggested we add this concern to the GARE equity analysis of the HB 4151 report. Jesus noted that this was an acceptable strategy for ensuring her concern is highlighted and proactive steps are taken to avoid unintended consequences. It's a good flag.
And so in the follow-up email I sent out, you can see it literally highlighted in the GARE, updated GARE for 4151.
And I think Corinna is on it.
I will say I do not know what page it's on, so I am just kind of searching.
That's okay. I didn't expect you to get there, so like I'm impressed already. So I think
It should be towards the bottom and highlighted. I can find the exact page number too.
Towards the bottom.
Are there other thoughts on this question? I mean, I definitely think, my understanding of the intent of this is it is to add, not to take away or undermine anything that is existing. So I definitely know that that's the intent, right? The stated intent, and so it was a good flag from you, Jesus. And my understanding is that is generally resolved. Yes. Appreciate you, friend. Any other?
This is Stephanie. I just want to add also, just for the sake of awareness, that I know at other tables, such as the Behavioral Health Talent Council Subcommittee on Licensing and Certification, there's been some conversation around looking at or exploring pathways for, pathways for peers, so that to kind of break through kind of the glass ceiling, if you will. And so just want to note that, this could be a potential pathway, for those that start out as peers, stepping into, the next stage potentially of their so desired career.
And, at that table, there's also been a lot of conversation and reminders from a lot of peer advocacy organizations about, the goal isn't for peers to step into clinical spaces, but, what are those areas of advancement that can happen within the peer realm. So just want to highlight that just for situational awareness.
Thank you, Ebony. And yeah, I see Kate nodding as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can hop in and just say, we had peer support specialists who were part of these conversations, and absolutely the intention is not it is for this to be complementary with services and roles that already exist, certainly not to supplant anything that's already in place, but really think about how do we thoughtfully continue to grow the workforce through different roles and different rungs on a workforce ladder. And when you look at the scope of practice for this role, that really is focusing on early identification, prevention. Some of those comments that actually came up in the previous conversation around behavioral health prevention. Of course, there's some overlap with work that peers do, but there's a lot of places where this role really is distinct, but would be complementary, working alongside folks in peer roles. And so, just wanted to echo that the real goal here is thinking about how we thoughtfully expand access and continue to build out our behavioral health workforce in ways that are complementary to roles that already exist.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, comment on that?
I do want to add that some peers are quite enjoy the work that they do on the ground. And so and some are doing it the reverse way. Some already have a bachelor's level degree, and through their life experiences are now doing peer work. So I don't think it's the same in every case that you're starting off a peer and you have no educational background, and then you move up to and then you're doing peer support work. So I just want to call that out. And also, many of the peers that I work with are quite happy where they are. And so I just want to give credence to that perspective that everyone's not going to move to a bachelor's, master's, or PhD level. Some folks are quite happy doing the boots on the ground type work. And I think that's very important that we consider that peer delivered services really are a focal point of healing for many communities. The folks wouldn't be getting the support that they need without those peers on the ground. So just want to call that out.
Yeah, 100% on that. Thank you for making sure that is stated explicitly. I appreciate that. There's a comment in the chat from Alicia, and just kind of some back and forth. And I know some people are on the phone, which is why I'll read these. Did we address the concern around pigeonholing Black providers into a BA level degree? I understand that it's supposed to be a stepping stone for master's or a doctorate, but recognizing that reality doesn't always hold up to this notable pathway, potentially. And Cody responded that it was written into the GARE analysis, the initial GARE analysis, and during the meeting we discussed that if folks had more concerns after reading to email Cody, and he didn't receive any additional feedback. So just wanted to make sure we address that kind of question response that's in the chat. Any other? I believe that's the last question that we had received. Any other questions?
I didn't receive any additional questions.
You did not? Okay.
I did not, correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council members? Or I'll open it up to also like members of that work group, so Kate or others, before we head to a vote.
This is Judge Gates. I've skimmed through the final report draft, and one of the things I noted, there was conversations about whether or not there should be background checks, and I saw that there were certain concerns. But quite frankly, I feel anyone working with children should have a background check. And so I obviously, what we were talking about with peer support, they are helpful. And we know that they have life experience, and some of that, my life experience may have connected them with the criminal justice system. But I think that can be accounted for. But I guess bottom line, I'm of the position that anyone working with children should have a background check. So I'm not sure where are we
I'm sorry, I talked to
as a group, or is there a concern about that? Obviously, we need to look at other factors as well, but I'm just kind of putting that out there.
Yeah, appreciate it. So what is in the report is a section on recommendations that were discussed or proposed but were not approved by the subcommittee to move for approval from the full council. And there was a recommendation that was considered but not moved forward to us to say we want to change some of the things in how the background check unit handles background checks for people with lived experience, to that exact point that you just made around lived experience, sometimes bringing people in contact with the legal system. What the final decision of the subcommittee was that there are other tables that are having those conversations about what needs to be changed in terms of background checks are done for populations with lived or living experience. And so we decided just to hold off on making any recommendation whatsoever. So it's just included in the, like, we discussed this and declined to make a recommendation on this topic.
I saw a
Anna,
nod.
that doesn't preclude the requirement that people who work with children have to have a background check, because I believe that's a requirement of most
Absolutely not. No, the
agencies and schools and all the
everything
other
stays
places.
the same.
Thank you.
We're just not making any recommendations about current state. Like we were saying, we recognize there are some barriers here. We don't have a solution to propose to it. So we're elevating this as an ongoing challenge that we know other people are talking about, but we can't tell you what we think you should do to solve it. We don't feel like we have that expertise, was actually the decision of the committee.
I'm seeing a nod from Judge Gates, so I think you're okay with that, Judge. I just want to make sure because Anna can't see.
Yes, that I'm okay with that.
Great. Sorry, I just doing a little narrating for to make sure that folks see the nonverbal or hear the nonverbal as well. So, other questions, comments, thoughts before we move to a vote on approving the report? Practicing pause. I always look for Jackie's name when I do that. Okay, then are we ready to move to a vote? So before we're making, do we have consensus, right? Before making any decisions, consider the GARE questions. We have considered those. We have completed a full GARE racial equity worksheet on this that folks have had distributed out to them for several weeks. And so does any member of the council wish to block? Does any member of the council wish to stand aside? Does anyone on the council wish to agree with reservations?
Adam, this is Ebony. I want to agree with reservations only because I need to connect with my team on some recent um, questions that they have, and I am not privy to those questions. And so, without knowing what those questions are, at this point, I agree. But just want to note that the reason why I'm agreeing with reservation is just because I was recently informed that some of my behavioral health team has some questions or thoughts that I have not had a chance to understand what they are, but I do support the process at this point.
Thank you, Ebony. So I have Alicia Overstreet, Allison Stark, and Adam Rodakowski agreeing with reservations, and Annette Magicotami agreeing with reservations. Does anyone wish to share their reservations at this time? And I'll start with Alicia if you wish.
I have several reservations, but I think most of them were addressed in the considerations sections throughout the report. And I guess also kind of full disclosure, I didn't want to just stand aside again and make other folks feel uncomfortable for standing aside. So I'm just going to put myself in the yes with reservations pot here. The, I guess, show some sort of solidarity. That makes sense.
I surely will not tell you how to vote. I would encourage you to vote as you feel.
That's not what I meant. That's absolutely not what I meant.
Yeah, no, I know you weren't implying that I was, but my point being was like, feel free to stand where you would like to stand.
No,
yeah. So
I think in general, my concerns were in the report, so I'm okay with being in this
okay
section.
Allison or Annette. Allison, if you would have anything that you would like to speak to, feel free. And you're not required to, obviously, but
I think that there's a level of complexity to this conversation that I just don't fully grasp, right? So I trust the process. I trust the work that's been done by the group. I trust that, all the questions have seemed to be answered really thoughtfully and respectfully. I just feel just not 100% prepared to say this is absolutely the best idea and that there aren't policy or other considerations that haven't been fully realized. So it's just a slight level of discomfort of being 100%, but not enough to stand aside or to block.
thank you. Anything you wish to say, Annette?
I just want to say that many years ago, or not too long ago, when traditional health workers were revered and honored in the communities that they continued to serve, and I'm kind of like standing up for that voice for the peer workforce, for traditional healthcare workers who provide a very useful service on the ground. So that's why I agree, but I still have reservations about the impacts on that workforce.
Thank you, Annette. I think my reservations sit mostly in rural and frontier Oregon communities. My concern is that, it is not as, folks in rural communities are less likely to have bachelor's degrees. And so my concern is that we're creating a piece of a system that is only going to be accessible or more accessible in high population areas. And I just don't know that I feel like that was really reflected in the work that was considered, or at least not to where I'm super comfortable just agreeing fully. And so, that's where I sit. Okay, members that would agree with the report, please now raise your virtual hand. So we have Zafir Michael Berry agreeing, Adam Peterson agrees, Jackie Serrano agrees, Robin Henderson agrees, Andrew Grover agrees, Judge Marisa Gates agrees, Kathy Mosley agrees, David Ratu agrees. I'm just not going to call anybody doctor because I'm not even sure who's doctors anymore. Sonia Little Deer Evans agrees. Jesus Nunez Pineda agrees. Sandra Santos agrees. Any comments from those in agreement? But if you can, sure, fair enough. Yes, yeah. Any comments from those agreeing?
This is Robin. The one thing I will say is that I started out in this process. I did not like this at all. I did not like this concept at all. I was not a fan. And I am very appreciative to the work that the House Bill 4151 work group did to move this along into something that when I'm looking at some of the service levels that they're looking at addressing, especially in the children's residential system, where we're moving from bringing in folks who've never had any type of training and experience, and we're the ones doing the training, to having a workforce that comes in with some skills in some of our most basic positions. I'm really thrilled, and I'm very thankful to the folks who worked on the House Bill 4151 work group and to Dr. McLaughlin and her team for making this something that, again, I was not a fan when this started, and I'm a fangirl.
I don't know what to say to that, Robin. I've never heard you describe yourself as a fangirl before, so I'm a little shook. Um, so, I mean, Dr. Henderson, pardon me, excuse me. Uh, all right, so the agrees have it. So, and no one blocked, no one stood aside. So, it looks like we are in approval of the 4151 report, and that will go forward as it stands. Any last comments from anybody on the agree side? I know Robin had an opportunity, just didn't know if anybody else had anything they wanted to say.
Adam, this is Kati. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of this council, and I think that the kind of work that the council seeks to do is both transformative and iterative. So I wasn't looking for a perfect set of solutions, but I was looking for improvement. I guess what I'm saying is I'm agreeing with this because I think it moves us to a better place, but it's not, the work isn't done. You know what I mean? Like this work is never done, but this is the next step. And I do think that there are some gaps in what's available for students, in particular for my seat at ODE, that some of the things in the workforce report that are recommended could really fill. And I think that is important to honor as well. So I'm not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, which is sort of what I heard Robin say too.
Thank you, Kati. Appreciate that. I think Andrew just has a stale hand up, so I'm gonna. Well, I think we're good, Annette. You're up.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Our next meeting will be December 2nd from 3 to 5. Should be already received a calendar invite. We'll report on public feedback from the strategic plans and resulting in some edits and some changes. The 2026 committee structure discussion and the fiscal report for approval at the December 16th meeting. December 16th, 2025 from 3 to 5, Zoom discussions and decisions, finalize the 26-29 strategic plan, finalize the fiscal report, and celebrate our 2025 successes. And Corinna has sent out a feedback form, so you should all have it. And so please remember to fill that out and share your reflections on the work that we have accomplished in 2026. And we'll have a big celebration together on the 16th.
All right.
Fear, your hand's up.
Before we leave, I want everyone to see this guy. Here's a cuttlefish. There's your crochet creature of the day.
Thank you.
I also see Sonia's hand up. I don't know if you had something else to share, Sonia. Okay.
Sorry, that was still up from voting.
Never mind then.
All right, y'all. Leave that cranberry sauce on the counter. Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.